Hello and welcome to Intelligent Pod, your go-to space for smarter living in a fast-changing world. I'm Sophie Lane, and I'm thrilled to have you with me today. If you're curious about how science gets done, who funds it, or how you might even participate in research yourself, you're in for a treat. Today's episode is all about decentralized science, often called DeSci, and whether it's truly revolutionizing the way research happens. So, let's put on our thinking caps and dive into this fascinating topic, decentralized science, revolutionizing research. First, let's break down what we mean by decentralized science. In a nutshell, DeSci is a movement that uses blockchain and Web3 technologies to make scientific research more open, accessible, and collaborative. Instead of research being controlled by a handful of institutions, DeSci aims to spread out decision-making and funding, inviting more people, sometimes anyone, to contribute, participate, and benefit. Now, why does this matter? Let's start with a few stats to set the stage. Did you know that according to the World Health Organization, roughly 80% of published research is inaccessible to the public because of paywalls? Or that it can take years for a new scientific idea to get funded and make its way through the traditional publication process? That's a long time, especially when it comes to urgent challenges like climate change or pandemics. Let's make this a bit more relatable. Imagine you're a passionate biology grad student with a brilliant idea for cancer research. You write a grant proposal, but it gets rejected. Not because it's not brilliant, but because you're not yet established, or maybe your idea is too out there for traditional funders. Or maybe you're a citizen scientist, eager to contribute data about your local environment, but you don't have access to official channels. In both cases, your enthusiasm and ideas might go nowhere. Enter DeSci. The dream here is to flatten those barriers. With decentralized platforms, researchers can pitch their projects directly to a global community, raise funds using cryptocurrencies, and share their data and results openly on public ledgers. No more gatekeepers, no more closed doors. Or at least, that's the vision. Let's explore this from a few perspectives, because as always on Intelligent Pod, we know there's more than one angle to every story. First, the scientific perspective. Traditionally, science has relied on peer review, institutional oversight, and well-established protocols. These aren't just bureaucratic hurdles. They're there to make sure research is rigorous, ethical, and valuable. But sometimes, they can slow things down or exclude unconventional thinkers. DeSci, on the other hand, promises speed and inclusivity. Picture a platform where anyone can propose an experiment, gather microfunding from supporters, and publish results directly to a blockchain, where they're permanently recorded and accessible. There's less red tape and more room for creativity. For example, the platform Molecule, which is at the forefront of DeSci, lets researchers tokenize their intellectual property. That means each project is represented by a digital token, which can be traded, funded, or collaborated on, all transparently. But scientifically, there's a risk here. What happens to quality control? If anyone can publish, how do we separate the signal from the noise? We don't want snake oil or pseudoscience flooding the system. Some DeSci platforms are tackling this with reputation systems or decentralized peer review. It's a work in progress. Next, the psychological and cultural perspective. Science has always been a community effort, but it's also been hierarchical. DeSci introduces a more horizontal culture. Think of it as science for the people, by the people. There's a sense of empowerment here. If you've ever felt frustrated by opaque journal paywalls or exclusionary funding structures, DeSci could be liberating. It invites citizen scientists, patients, hobbyists, and independent researchers to participate. Not just as subjects, but as collaborators. But this shift can be unsettling too. For scientists used to a certain prestige or gatekeeping power, DeSci may feel like a threat to standards or professional identity. And for fundies, there's a loss of control. The cultural transition may be bumpy. Now let's bring in the economic perspective. Traditional science funding is often limited and highly competitive. DeSci enables new funding models, crowdfunding, token sales, and decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. These DAOs can allocate funds based on community voting, not just expert panels. For instance, VitaDAO is a community-owned collective advancing longevity research. Members pool resources, vote on which projects to support, and share in the intellectual property generated. This model could democratize which research gets funded and potentially speed up discoveries. But, as with anything involving money and hype, there's potential for problems. Crowdfunding can favor flashy projects over those with quiet, long-term benefits. There's also the question of sustainability. Can these platforms keep funding projects once the initial excitement fades? Let's pause and look at a real-life anecdote that illustrates both the potential and the challenge of DeSci. In 2021, a group of independent researchers used a decentralized platform to raise funds for a study on rare diseases. They managed to bypass traditional grant applications and secured enough money from a global network of supporters to move the project forward. The data and findings were made freely available online, inviting others to build on their work. But the same group later struggled with coordinating peer review and ensuring data quality, since the decentralized model relied on volunteer oversight. It's a reminder that while DeSci opens new doors, it also raises new questions about standards and accountability. Now, let's anchor our discussion in some academic research. A 2022 paper published in Nature explored early experiments in decentralized publishing. The researchers found that open, blockchain-based platforms increased collaboration and data sharing, but also that many users worried about inadequate review and the potential for misinformation. The authors concluded that decentralized models have real promise, but need robust systems for quality assurance. So how can you, whether you're a scientist, student, or just a curious listener, engage with DeSci or apply its principles in your life? Here are a few actionable ideas. First, embrace open science. Even if you're not on a DeSci platform, you can choose to share your data, code, or research notes on open repositories like GitHub or the Open Science Framework. Openness is at the heart of DeSci. Second, support citizen science projects. Platforms like Zooniverse or iNaturalist let anyone, anywhere, contribute to research. You don't need a PhD, just curiosity and a willingness to participate. Third, learn about decentralized technologies. If you're interested in the nuts and bolts, look up how blockchain works or experiment with a DAO. There are beginner-friendly communities online, and you don't need to be a programmer to get involved. Fourth, advocate for transparency. Whether in your workplace, school, or local government, push for open access to information and participatory decision-making. These are values DeSci champions. And finally, stay critical. Openness and decentralization are powerful, but they aren't magic wands. Question sources, seek quality, and contribute thoughtfully. DeSci is a tool. How we use it is up to us. So, to sum up, decentralized science is shaking up the way research is funded, conducted, and shared. It promises a more open, inclusive, and speedy scientific process, but it also comes with challenges, especially around quality control and sustainability. The movement is still young, but it's already changing the culture of science and inviting more people to the table. As we wrap up, I invite you to reflect on this. Science has always thrived when it's open and collaborative. DeSci is one way to push that openness further. Whether you're a researcher, a hobbyist, or just a lifelong learner, you have a role to play in shaping the future of discovery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. Your feedback helps Intelligent Pod reach more curious minds. For show notes, links to sources, and more, visit intelligentpod.com. And if you have questions, ideas, or stories about DeSci or open science, I'd love to hear from you. Email me anytime at sophie@intelligentpod.com. Thank you for joining me, Sophie Lane, on this journey through the frontiers of science. Stay curious, stay open, and I'll catch you next time on Intelligent Pod.